multifaceted. It's sort of the creme de la creme, the coolest thing that we get to do is to do a spacewalk. All astronauts want to do a spacewalk. When I saw Neil and Buzz walking the moon, they were doing a spacewalk. That is a really sought-after thing. It's a dangerous thing. It's a complex thing, but it's a cool thing. So on my second spaceflight, I had a chance to do 2 spacewalks. And it's a complex process, and you build the spacesuit around your body. It's a one-person spaceship, really, if you think about it. It's completely self-contained. And you finally get the suit built. You've spent a decade learning how to do this thing and operate the suit. And then finally, you're in the airlock. One of you's this way, the other one's that way, because there's not room for both of your shoulders to be the same direction. And you've got the closed in one end. You've worked the procedures for hours. You've already been awake 4 or 5 hours going through every single step. It's like step 493 is open the hatch and go outside. And so you're there, and you realize that even this might not work. We had one pair of spacewalkers that they got there to step 493, and the hatch wouldn't turn, the handle wouldn't go. And eventually, they never could get it open. When they came back, they found that there had been 2 tiny little set screws that come loose inside the mechanism that had been built 15 years before in a little business that didn't even exist anymore, and that had stopped the mechanism. So this is in your mind as you're doing it, thinking, hope there's no loose set screws in there, and you turn this thing, you grab the hatch, you take it up like a manhole, and clunk it into place, and then push the big thermal cover out of the way, grab on, carefully pull yourself up, and then suddenly you were just not where you expected to be. You'd been in this little claustrophobic phone booth of a thing, and suddenly you are in the universe. And I mean, you're holding on real tight. If you could see your knuckles through your gloves, they'd be white, because you're holding on. And the whole world is right there beside you. And the world isn't below you. We're used to seeing the universe above us and the world below. But suddenly the world is beside you, and you're flying along with it. And it's the colors and textures and a kaleidoscope that's just pouring by at 5 miles a second. And it's just mesmerizing. And when you look at the other way, it's the black endlessness of the whole universe is right there over your shoulder. And you're in between the two, holding on. And after a while, you start to realize it, and you start to relax and just hold on with one hand. And your whole link with the other 6 or 7 billion people is in one hand. And you are starting to see the rest of the universe and our place in it in a perspective that is unprecedented and new. And it's an amazing personal experience, an amazing professional experience, but also one, I think, that gives us a perspective that is important for all.
Does it change you? I mean, you mentioned Buzz, you mentioned Neil Armstrong, and many of those were profoundly altered and changed by the experience of what you just described. Would you seem remarkably sound? It's as though
almost sane.
Almost sane. Now, did you experience that, but you came back and it didn't have the same profound effect on you, to the extent that in some ways it was bad for some of those. They found it very difficult to cope with normality.
Part of it was the speed with which we ran the Apollo program. Neil Armstrong was an astronaut for 8 years total. He flew 3 times in space. He was a test pilot, and 7 years later he was walking on the moon. Incredibly fast, and they focused almost exclusively on machine